Hey, ideators and entrepreneurs, CUNY Startups here. Welcome to CUNY and Beyond, the podcast dedicated to helping aspiring entrepreneurs through storytelling. We're excited to dive into the entrepreneurial endeavors of CUNY students, alum, and bonus entrepreneurs who are willing to share their valuable insights with you. Join us for today's show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CUNY and Beyond. I'm Gail Yankosic, and I am joined today by Carla Franchesca, who is a CUNY alum of both Borough of Manhattan Community College and City College Film and Media Program. Welcome, Carla. It's lovely to be able to talk to you for a bit today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, Gail. Before
we get to your CUNY background, I wanted to ask you to tell us, you currently work at MNN, but I wanted to have you tell us about the company you formed.
Rayoelú Films. I know it's a bit complicated name to pronounce.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it came to be?
Yes. So when I realized that filmmaking was my passion, that's what the career that I wanted to pursue, I said, well, I think that I want to build a brand around the work that I do. And that was around the same time that I was building my portfolio. So it was interesting because the name came about the time that I was taking an After Effects class or course, and I needed to design something, a logo. And I said, well, you know what, I'm gonna take this opportunity to do something productive with this time. And that name came to me. Rayo de luz is actually 3 words in Spanish that you could translate to ray of light. And if you think about how images form in the camera, it's through light. And because I'm Dominican and we have this tendency to crunch words together and talk very fast, I decided to combine the 3 words. And that's how the name Rayoelú was born in 2016.
I love it. Tell us about some of the films that have come out of that company.
We've been doing documentary filmmaking, short docs. The first doc that I produced was about the problem with the street vendors in New York City. That is still a situation happening. And then when I went to City College, I continued in the documentary track. I did another documentary, but this time around with a small business owner. Outside of the stuff that I was doing in CUNY as a student after I graduated, I was producing short films as associate producer. The last one I actually did was I Am Poem, that is still in the circuit. I'm very happy because this is the second year of this short film going around with LGBTQ topic. And I work as an assistant director, later on as an editor, and then I became associate producer with Rayoelú Films.
Fabulous. Good for you. Tell me how I am fascinated by the street vendor one. And tell me how that caught your attention.
Well, I always tell the story that it was a simple assignment by my dear professor Anastasios Rigopoulos. It was as simple as interview your mom or your grandfather or your uncle. I said, well, I'm very curious about the street vendors in this country because I wasn't born and raised here. So I had no idea what it took to become a street vendor. And that's when I started doing my research, and I found out that there was a lot going on. They were protesting around that time. I was very lucky because I caught a big protest in front of the city council. I got to know this organization called the Street Vendor Project, and they introduced me to the problem and the legislation. And I was fascinated by it. I said, well, it's just easy for us to see all of these street cars and people selling all sort of things, but we really don't know what's going on with them. And it's part of the economy. It's part of New York City economy.
Right. Of course. It's a huge part of it, actually. I think you see them everywhere. They have their licenses, but you kind of wonder what goes on behind the scenes. And that short doc particularly interested me because I was born and raised here in Manhattan. So seeing a little bit of background that I didn't know was really helpful in appreciating the hard work they do.
Thank you.
What are the things, as you go forward, what are the things that interest you the most in your work as a documentary producer?
Immigration, I will say. The socioeconomics, immigration, Latino or Latina community, now the
Right.
so-called Latinx or Latine.
Yes.
It's my community. Yes, one time we had a big back and forth in one of our city college classrooms about who gets to tell what stories. And I remember that one of my classmates was telling me, well, I'm a black man. If I want to go and do something with the Asian community, I think I can do it. And I said, I think you're very talented and you can do it. But are you the most appropriate person to do it? I don't know. Because there is a video going around in social media that it's an old video, but it's every so often people brings it back about Denzel Washington talking about the experiences, the experiences that African American film directors have versus their, white film directors. And it's not a matter of talent or, the possibility of doing certain things. Like, yeah, you could do it. Right. There's no doubt you could do it, but there's another sensibility that goes into that.
Right. I think I understand what you're saying. And so that brings me to the question, has being a Latina helped or hindered or both your growth in this industry? Latinas are not necessarily widely represented in film and media. That's getting better, I believe. But what are your thoughts on that?
We're still not there. Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misrepresentation. You still see actors who are not Latino portraying Latinos. Again, it's not a problem about talent. People are very talented, right. and I think if they're given an opportunity and they want to seize the opportunity, please go for it. But I don't blame the actors or the actresses. I blame the production, the castings, who are not looking for, the proper representation.
Why do you think casting directors, producers, directors, why do you think that there's such a wealth of talent among the Latino community that crosses media, it crosses film, it crosses all the arts? Why do you think that there's a lack of representation? Are they hesitant? Are they afraid to cast someone who is Latina in those roles? What's you? And again, I understand this is your opinion.
I guess so. I mean, I don't see why not. Especially if we are in New York City. We are in New York City. You get everything and from everywhere. There's not a reason that if you are looking like for, let's say, I'm going to bring the LGBTQ community. If you need a trans person to be in your short film, why don't you go to the trans community and try to find an actor there?
Right.
As simple as that. So I honestly, Gail, I just don't know. I don't think there's an excuse.
I agree with you. I think there's no excuse for it. And you're not the only community. Asians are still not as represented also. And we could go down the list.
That's right.
In New York, especially in New York, you walk across an avenue or you go across a street and you've got the United Nations, you're hearing many different languages being spoken. This is such an incredible place that there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, I could understand if you are, I don't know, qué sé yo, something in Spanish. I don't know, if you're in Utah, in Canada, not even in Canada, Latinos are in Canada too. I don't know, like, a remote place. I could understand that. And it goes the same way for the indigenous community. I think Scorsese's last film won several Oscars, or maybe one, I don't remember, to be honest with you. And I was very happy when the actress won, she being from the indigenous community. I was very happy. I said, well, you know what? This time they did it correctly.
And it was hard to believe that we were in 2024 and that's the first time it happened.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to what you mentioned before about being Latina. Imagine if women,
Yes.
not just Latina, but if women are still facing these challenges of being represented in the industry, like how many female directors have won Oscars, best film or best director? Like, let's pause and think about that. Imagine you're part of, you're a woman, but then you're also Latina. The challenge is bigger.
Yes, that's a very good point that you make, Carla, because you're talking about a very large population and a very talented population, because as we just said, there are so much talent among that community, but people seem to be afraid to pursue it. It leads me to ask you, tell me about your interest in immigration. You said that a lot of your interest in your films have been, tell me your interest in immigration.
Well, it's simple. And we can see it now with what's happening at the border. Gail, if I could go to the border and have a conversation with all of those people that are crossing, how powerful and enriching that would be, because I bet you their experiences will not going to be the same. They're not migrating because of the same reason or circumstance. There are people that were probably professionals back in their countries and they had to leave for X or Y reason, not necessarily economic reasons. I just want to learn about that. I want to have the opportunity to hear from them and not necessarily what the news have to tell me about them, because we often hear what the news have to say about all of these people. But how beautiful will be if we give them the opportunity to hear from them. And I'm going to use an example. When I went to the streets to talk to the street vendors, and I found that this lady has been in the same spot selling underwear for over 25 years. To me, that was like impressive. I'm like, so you raise your entire family selling underwear on the street for over 25 years?
Right.
Is that even possible? Is that even possible?
Exactly.
And what do you do when it's extremely cold? And what do you do when it's extremely hot? But having the opportunity to listen from her and not just make assumptions. And I think that's the problem, that we often make assumptions about people. I think it's just fascinating. It's incredible. Immigration
is a heartbreaking story, but it's an amazing story, as you just pointed out, that so many of the people coming here take jobs where in their home country they may have been professors or nurses or doctors, and they have to make a living and they're not being hired in those jobs. It's fascinating for me, and I love your idea of interviewing these people, because I think you'll get those stories. It reminds me when I was in college, and that was a long time ago, believe me. I had a professor who came here he and his family came from Cuba, and he was teaching part-time. It was at Fordham University, and he was teaching part-time, but he was talking about his wife, who was a doctor. He was a full professor, and they came here to escape a very bad life, to find a better life, and leaving behind not just possessions, but the essence of what they worked hard to achieve. And had to take lesser jobs, as you were talking about. And I think those stories are, we have them everywhere. It's every community goes through this. If you need help, I'll help you. If you need help on the documentary, I would love to see you do that work, because I think it's I think those voices are important to hear. Before I let you go, because we could talk forever, but
yes,
we'll have to have you come back.
Well, I
want to ask you. Yes, well, yes, clearly you see I do also. Tell me, Carla, about the influence that your that your life at CUNY, so to speak, had on you, both in your studies. You were at BMCC, you were at City College in the film and media. Tell me how that influenced you.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big question, actually, because I came here as an adult. I moved to the United States as an adult, and I had already completed almost 4 years of college in the Dominican Republic. I was studying journalism and public relations, and, my family one day made the decision because of economic reasons to move here. And it was like a jump start in start from zero. I remember I went to a CUNY Express, telling the counselor, I would like to go back to school. And I don't know, I start from zero. And she said, well, if you completed courses in the Dominican Republic, you need to transfer. And it was a big bureaucratic process. I actually lost a whole year. I remember I couldn't enroll right away. And she advised me to go to BMCC. I didn't know what a community college was because the concept of community college in the Dominican Republic does not exist. So it was very interesting for me. I knew about City College because I live in Washington Heights. I always pass by these buildings, beautiful buildings, and I was like, this is where I want to go. But no, she sent me to a community college that I had no idea what it was. And let me tell you, Gail, that was the best decision ever. Because first of all, I didn't speak English. I knew words, but I couldn't read an entire book or write an essay. So as you can imagine, the first semester was extremely hard, very, very, very hard. But it was great because the support that I found in the institution was amazing. I had amazing professors. Till today, I'm connected to the department, the media department, as an alumni. And I think the experience that I had is something that you need to live it. Nobody can tell you. Not only being part of a classroom and getting to interact with so many people from so many backgrounds. This is where I actually feel good. I thought that I was a little old to go back to school. And I had classmates that were, grandparents. And they were next to me.
Even older than you. Yeah, that's one of the beauties of CUNY, I think.
Yes. And that was beautiful. And I got to learn so much from them, not only from my professors. Learning from the Puerto Rican experience, being Dominican, I realized I had no idea about my neighbors, the Puerto Ricans. And learning in this class, the Latino experience, it was amazing. And again, before I graduated from BMCC, one of my requirements was to do an internship. I got an internship at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and I'm still working here. I've been here almost for 8 years, and it's an amazing job. This summer, I'm working with Summer Youth Employment Program, where I am very fortunate to be teaching to 8 wonderful youth about storytelling and documentary. They're now working on their projects.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Good for you. Well, I wish we had more time to talk, but I want to say congratulations to you for your spirit, for your perseverance, for your dedication to the craft that both you and I'm been a journalist for a very long time. I just think that you have so much to give. I'm delighted to hear you're teaching students too, because you have so much to impart to them and they can learn so much from you. So Carla, thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you for the invitation.
It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Plenty, but I won't stop her too until I die empty. Yeah, accountability.